Recording in progress.
Is it lit up green?
You'll need a green light to be heard.
You gotta press and hold for it to turn green.
Thank you, Chris.
Just press it again and turn it
Ready, Chris?
You're recording.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:38, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the September 19th meeting. It was a special meeting. The minutes were distributed to everybody. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve. Read on.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Kaplan.
Kevin Harrington, if I could make a friendly motion to amend the motion to approve them and just to correct on page 2, the first line under further discussion for the treasurer position, change it from Chairman Harrington to Chairman Remington. Would you accept that friendly amendment?
Sure.
Right?
Go, yes, sure.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Can you still hear us, Mike? Hello?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, the light went off on my microphone. Okay, up to public comment. Is there any public comment in the room?
I'll do.
Why don't you use, Kevin, would you mind handing the microphone over?
Slide.
Thank you. Is it on?
The light's gotta be green on the button there.
Green light's on.
Perfect.
Thank you. I had some comments about last week's meeting. I listened to the recording, and
Can you just state who you are?
I'm Suzanne Irwin. I live at 58 Marburn Drive.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I wanted to, I guess, recap some of the things that I took from the meeting, and some of the things you're saying. So I tried to make a couple notes here. Will be more brief than it looks. Amanda Moore spoke. She's the town director of finance, and she said that before she went to work in Windsor Locks, there was a tax collector who stole. So I was wanting more information about that, so I did some research, and I found out that about 25 years ago there were 2 instances where people were accused of stealing. These were both in the tax collector position in Windsor Locks, and in both cases the charges were dropped. And keeping in mind that these were tax collectors, so Windsor Locks tax collector is elected and continues to be elected to this day. So based on this information, last week, your commission voted to recommend that the town treasurer become an appointed position. That seemed kind of inconsistent with the information she was providing. One thing she did say was that elected officials are harder to remove. It didn't make sense to me that based on the fact that Windsor Locks had a problem with the tax collector 25 years ago, that the leap would be for have us to vote for our treasurer to be appointed, not elected. One of the commission members said, obviously a huge concern about what she said, meaning Mandy, about what she said about the town of Windsor and having an issue with their treasurer. So that was incorrect information. And I was surprised that, again, it went from the town of Windsor Locks tax collector with allegations of stealing. And again, like I said, the charges were dropped in those cases, to the board here voting to make our treasurer an appointed an appointed position. Another thing that was said last week was that, referred to the challenge we would have with a one-person office with the treasurer. I was in the treasurer's office yesterday. It's, to me, a fairly small area. It's got two women who I didn't know. Over this way, Casey, the town treasurer, was sitting, and right to her left is a door that goes into the director of finance. There's nothing I saw there that I would ever call a one-person office. What it is 3 town hirees and 1 elected person sharing a workspace. I can't imagine that they're not working in very close contact with each other and sharing information. Of course, I don't know that, but Casey was close enough that Mandy could hit her with a spitball, you know. I mean, she was probably closer than I am to your desk there. So I just took issue with the idea of calling that a one-person office. I had never been up there, but it was nothing I would ever describe as a one-person office. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments in the room? All right, I'm not sure if we have anybody on Zoom. Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to make a comment?
It's just me and Mike.
Mike, okay. All right, I know Mike's got a hard stop at 7 o'clock. So. Okay, so the next agenda item is continuing our discussion regarding potential changes to the Permanent Building Commission provisions in the charter.
Hey Eric, this is Kathy Harrington. If I may just interject,
Sure.
Colin texted me to say if you would like him to be here, he can be here at 7, if you could push his item back to then, if we want to consider that or not, I'm not certain. I just told him I would mention it. We would have to probably amend the, although it's a special meeting, so I don't think we can.
I mean, he's
do that.
provided written commentary, I think
Okay.
we're probably good, yeah.
Okay.
So just to recap, so Kevin Goff is the chairman of the Permanent Building Commission, and he expressed some concerns about the interpretation of the duties of the PBC. So Kevin has provided some potential language changes to the charter, and Colin has provided in writing a response to that. But Kevin is here, so I guess, Kevin, why don't you explain the changes that you've recommended, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I think the best summary that I can give to my reading of the charter and the way that we function in support of town employees, for public works, the school department, whoever is in charge of each building. When we had the last change in selectmen, there was a big change in responsibility to the PBC. We suddenly became the setting of the agenda. We were responsible to set the agenda for what's to happen with each building. It started with the facilities long-term review, which we're still in the middle of evaluating each building, to recommend back to the Board of Selectmen on what we should do with that facilities master plan. So in the midst of that, we've also been working on a project for Babs roller rink. We're still dealing with the EPA responsibilities at KML Library and air quality testing. And there's just been some other miscellaneous things around. So while we have always functioned to carry out the contractual duties of each project that has been assigned to us, it appears that we're trying now, that the selectman is asking us to recommend, what do we do next? Do we build a fire station? Do we build a police station? Do we combine them? It seems like an out-of-place responsibility when we have no authority to spend any money. So that's what kind of caught my eye with the way I read it. And I think, I have many comments on here, but the one that kind of wraps it up is that the issue isn't who is in charge of the initial project development. Is it the Public Works Director suggesting changes to infrastructure, or is it the PBC? Is it the school's facilities director, or is it the PBC? Is it the selectman, or is it the PBC? The charter suggests, well, it doesn't suggest, it says that we shall submit a report every year before July 1st on the status of each building and recommendations for projects for each of those buildings. It's been in the charter for a long time, but we've never been tasked to do that. It would be hard for us to carry out that duty without a budget to hire inspectors, architects, engineers, things like that, to really come up with an honest evaluation of each of the buildings. Whether it's HVAC, electrical, just structural. We're a part-time volunteer group, very willing to put in the hours we have for many years. I just think that the reporting structure is not clear to us, and that's what I was trying to straighten out.
So has the PBC been asked to provide this annual report at all?
Never.
Okay. But you haven't been asked now, have you?
Well, we've been asked to review the facilities master plan and come up with a recommendation on what to do with that plan. That would be the first time, but that's not an annual, that's a one-time
Right.
request. So I was just looking for clarity within a charter to say, okay, who is walking through the buildings every day to say, okay, what does this building need? Is it us, or is it somebody else?
Yeah. I mean, I think I understand.
Because you can read this either way.
Right. I mean, when I read it, I mean, it seems to me the spirit of the Permanent Building Commission is that, you know, when there's a major project, building a new building, significantly renovating a building in addition, that's when things get turned over to the Permanent Building Commission. I mean,
There's a budget, there's a project, there's a scope,
Mhm.
everything's clear, everybody knows what we want.
Right.
They give us that information along with the budget, and we take it from there.
Right.
Kevin, you, Ray Dalrymple, you were the one that made the changes to the charter directly.
I just suggested changes.
So just changes, okay, all right. So I
And
guess,
let me say, Ray, it's not really even suggested changes, it is items within the language of this that can be read two different ways. Now that the structure of the Public Works Department has changed significantly, there's no choice but to pass it on to somebody else. There is no Public Works Department.
right,
I shouldn't say, it. There is a one head of Public Works that can only do so much.
I read through this language, I mean, I didn't take any objection to the language. I just wish that it would have been presented as a consensus from the PBC.
Yeah.
And that's Colin's gripe here.
We haven't had, other than a special meeting,
Right, I know you
Well,
don't,
some
I
of them, we
know you
haven't
don't
had
meet that often.
we've had conversations with each other.
What's your feel as to how the other board members, I mean, do you
I
have
haven't
any
had one
crystal-
person say to me that I was out of line, because I can just come out here and say this stuff.
Yeah, sure,
I-
right.
You know, this was with much consensus.
But did they get a copy of this, do you know?
Yes,
They did get a copy of this.
yes, each individual, as they showed interest and asked, then I gave it to them. I didn't send it out to say, what do you think?
And I'm sorry, it's my, excuse my ignorance, how many people on the PBC? 8, okay.
6 and 2.
So if I may, just follow up on what Ray asked, this is Kathy Harrington, so then how many people did you actually share it with?
I shared it with 3. But the conversations were virtually with everybody.
Because what we have here in the letter, I think, sets forth is that
it's unilateral.
there was information that some members weren't in agreement with
Yeah,
this.
well, I don't know, none of them have expressed that to me. And the selectman has not spoken with me about it either. This is an ambush.
I mean, I'm not gonna get in between
I'm
that.
just
You
telling
could also say that maybe he feels like it's an ambush as well, you coming to CRC as opposed to him,
Yeah.
right?
But only
So-
after we've talked.
Okay.
He and I talked.
Well, we've asked him to come here to
Right.
respond to this,
Right.
and he has responded. And it's funny, because that was one question I meant to ask last week, and I had forgotten, which was to ask, did this come from the entire PPC? Did they vote on these changes?
No, we have only had a special meeting since, we've been on a special meeting schedule since June to review the buildings.
Yep.
We haven't had a regular meeting with these type of agenda items.
Exactly, and just to clarify, right, there was one, maybe two changes on here that were actually mine, as opposed to Kevin's. I was just trying to to make a correction to one of his changes to implement what he was looking for. So if it's in blue, it was mine, and if it was in red, it was
Okay.
his.
Actually, don't forget a copy of those.
Thank you.
All right, Mike, I know you have a hard stop and we're gonna lose you. Is there anything you wanna add before we lose you?
I lost him already.
Mike? Is he still in?
Yep, sorry, just double muted.
That's okay. So Mike, I know we're gonna lose you in a minute or two. Is there anything you wanna add to the discussion before we lose you?
No, I really don't have anything else to add. Eric, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay. All right, Jeremy?
Yeah, I almost wonder if just a simple solution to this is this something that you'd be comfortable taking back to the,
Absolutely.
commission and just
Absolutely, yeah.
introducing it as a
Exactly.
more formal presentation?
Absolutely. How much
Just to
time
help.
do you guys have?
Well, we're wrapping up hopefully by the end of the month. It's October, right? Yeah.
So I might be able to get it on the agenda for Thursday night. We'd have to adjust agendas for Thursday night. And we can discuss it then.
Your agenda.
Our agenda.
PBC agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you have time. Okay. So is that,
That's fine.
yeah, okay, perfect.
There's no secrets.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we just need to better understand, is this it's not clear to me if there's an issue with the charter, or if there's just a misunderstanding somewhere of what the responsibilities
That's where this all
All right.
started.
Mhm.
I just wanted to look at the charter because the focus on us has been completely different. And I was surprised after reading the charter, shame on me, after 26 years on the committee, but we've been marching along for that period of time.
Sure.
It was just a big surprise on the amount of responsibility that is shifted.
Right, okay. All right, well, hopefully you can get it on your agenda
Sure.
for Thursday,
I
and
can do that.
then why don't you follow up with me, and we'll figure out what the next step
And I
is.
will invite the first selectman.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, great,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay, but we won't be offended if you don't.
Very busy with you.
Have fun.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is reviewing the language, charter language changes to the treasurer position. So Kathy, thank you for reaching out to the town attorney, and he has provided some language changes, potential language changes to the charter. So I've only printed the pages that had changes to them. So maybe it might make sense for us to go through those changes. I do have some extra copies if anybody would like those. Everybody has one here, right?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
No
Oh.
Okay.
I think I'm finding pretty quick. First one, page 5 or page 4? Oh, that's just.
All right, so,
There you go.
the first reference to the treasurer appears in section 302, which is elected town officers, boards, and commissions. And so the current language in the charter says the town treasurer, well, it refers to elected positions, but the town treasurer for a term of 4 years rather than 2 years, effective with the election of 1987. So, I mean, that, essentially says that, the charter currently says that a treasurer shall be elected every 4 years. And so the language that Derek has proposed adding there would clarify that the treasurer serves through November 16th, 2027. And effective with the election of 2027, the treasurer shall no longer be an elected official. So, obviously, there's other provisions where we have to address the treasurer, but that's the proposed language to remove the treasurer as an elected position in the charter. I mean, I think we can probably go through each of these and then we can come back and talk about it. So then, chapter 6 is appointed personnel, and so, so I believe Derek is proposing we add a section 610 to the charter, which would be related to the town treasurer. And so his proposed language is, I'll just read it, section A, a majority of the Board of Selectmen shall appoint a town treasurer who shall be chosen exclusively on the basis of professional qualifications, character, and administrative experience. The town treasurer shall have all the powers and duties imposed and conferred by Connecticut general statutes. Appointment shall be made prior to November 16th, 2027 to a term to begin on that date. Section B, the term of office of the town treasurer shall be 2 years, and until his or her successor has been appointed. The treasurer shall be a town employee, subject to all rules and provisions of personnel policies. Prior to the end of a term, the removal of the treasurer must be for just cause and confirmed by affirmative vote of 4/5 of the entire Board of Selectmen. In section C, in the event of a temporary vacancy in the office of town treasurer, the director of finance shall serve in that capacity on an interim basis not to exceed 30 days. Such interim basis may be extended by a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen. Well, maybe, does anybody have anything they want to say about that before we move on?
Yeah, Ray Honorable, I'm just, I guess, a little confused. I didn't know that somebody appointed would have a term assigned to them versus just being a town employee. What am I missing? Are all positions that are not elected are appointed for a certain period of time?
Well, I think when you look down at, this is Kathy Harrington, section 611 for Director of Finance, there for a term of 4 years under the charter
Right. So,
as well.
okay. But not all, these are certain positions.
It must be, I'm
That are
assuming, for the
appointed.
managerial.
Most
Or
employees
senior-
are at will, I
senior,
believe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Do you know what the assessor is? I don't have that.
Off the, no, because I didn't print the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to kind of have a list of,
Well, I mean, this is his
Who's
proposed
appointed.
language. We don't necessarily have to accept the 2-year term. That was just his.
We can also ask Derek if he could come to our next meeting or explain that portion of it. That way he can give us background, just generally also.
no, just
for
out
other
of
positions.
curiosity, I'd be curious to see how many positions are appointed, assigned with a term versus employees at will.
Right.
Okay, that's all I had.
And,
I agree.
I mean, the one thing, yeah, I don't think you're locked into having it as a separate position, the way this is written. I mean, I think, you could appoint the director of finance or the assistant director of finance as the town treasurer. They could serve dual roles. I don't think there's any language here that would preclude you from doing that. Or you could hire somebody to serve just as the treasurer. Does that make sense?
This is Jeremy Lambert. The only other thing I wanted to note, and I was just looking up, I don't necessarily disagree, but, so it looks like sections A and C of this are by simple majority, and then section B is by 4/5. It's just a distinction that's made. I just found it interesting, that was all. I wanted to highlight that. At least that's how I read it. If
No,
I'm
I think
correct, then.
you're correct, this is Kathy Harrington. It looks like it would be a higher standard since it would be for the removal for just cause. And
Yep.
wanting to make sure that, obviously, it's almost like a supermajority of the board would approve of it.
Yep.
And I believe Derek said maybe he had gotten this from other towns, charters, and kind of merged them all together.
Mhm.
I mean, it would also require consensus so that, you know, if you had a change in leadership, one party took control over another in an election, that, you know, a new board of selectmen couldn't just oust the treasurer because they wanted, you know, a different person.
Yep.
Of a different political affiliation in there, if that were the issue.
Makes sense.
So then in the director of finance position or description, there is a reference to the treasurer, and it says that the director of finance, the first selectman, and the treasurer shall be in frequent contact and shall at all times coordinate their efforts so as to best serve the interests of the town of Suffield. So, I mean, I do think that that's another approach that could be taken, is that, you know, the duties of the treasurer could be woven into the director of finance position. It wouldn't preclude you from hiring somebody to work under the director of finance to serve as the treasurer, but it would be another option to say, you know, the director of finance also assumes the duties of the treasurer. But, you know, as I said earlier, I don't think the way it's written precludes that. And, you know, perhaps it gives you more flexibility to structure it in, you know, what made sense at the time. Any thoughts there?
I guess I would like to hear from Derek as to whether he thinks 610 is written in that fashion.
Okay. All right, so there is another reference to the treasurer in, I'm not sure what section this is, but under
Chapter C, page 16.
Page, section
chapter
K.
7. Yeah, I'm not sure the section, but subchapter C, or K. So the retirement commission, so the treasurer is automatically a member of the retirement commission. And so Derek just has a note here that reference can stay, that there's nothing that says a member of the retirement commission needs to be an elector, because it's not an appointed, because it's not an elected body. So if somebody assumed the treasurer duties, they were not a resident of Suffield, his point is they could still serve as a member of the retirement commission.
So no language needs to be changed.
No.
Well, unless we wanted to remove the treasurer and, as an automatic member of the retirement commission.
Yeah, okay.
You know, whether it would make more sense to have that as the director of finance, I guess that would be an option too.
Interesting, I guess I thought the director of finance was already in there.
Well, they kind of run the agenda and things like that, but they're not a voting member currently. So there's also a, I guess this is where I should have printed all the pages, but, so there's a provision that says monies are surplus cash funds already held in reserve and available for such capital and non-recurring expenditures are contemplated provided in the following paragraphs. All such money so accumulated together with the interest which may accrue thereon shall be deposited in a separate bank account by the treasurer and shall be used for the purposes of and in a manner prescribed by the Board of Finance in the town meeting. So, I mean, Derek is highlighting that because the treasurer is referenced, but his recommendation is that no change is needed. That there would still be a treasurer, the treasurer would still do those things, and so the reference in the charter does not need to be changed. And then there's also a, is there, no. So there's a reference to supplemental appropriations indicating that the selectmen shall include the treasurer's recommendations on financing and shall present it to the Board of Finance for action. So, you know, again, Derek is saying there's still a treasurer, they can still make those recommendations, so no change is needed. And then there's section 805 under borrowing. There's a reference to the town treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen. In concurrence of the Board of Finance is authorized and empowered to borrow money in anticipation of taxes to be collected and to issue town notes thereof in an amount not to exceed $1 million. So again, still somebody serving in the treasurer role, so he does not believe that anything needs to be changed there. So section 807, expenditures and accounting, section B, it says the treasurer or his agent shall cause the amount of authorized purchases and contracts for future purchases to be recorded as encumbrances against the appropriations from which they are to be paid. So again, he's suggesting no changes there. I'm almost wondering if that should be changed to the Director of Finance. Because in effect, that's the way it works today. That it's the Director of Finance that's doing those things today. I would suggest not really the Treasurer. So section E under 807. So it essentially says that, you know, no voucher claim or charge shall be paid without being validated and approved by the treasurer or his agent. And that seems a bit antiquated to me as well, because I think that's all being done by the Director of Finance today as well. So then there's also in reference to the Board of Education expenditures, that those need to be countersigned by the treasurer or his agent.
No, you know who countersigns those, no?
Board of Education checks are actually signed by 2 members of the Board of Selectmen and the treasurer. I mean, nobody actually signs a check, it's all done electronically.
Yep.
Okay. And then, and there's several references to the treasurer in this paragraph. I guess it,
Yep, continues on the top of the next page.
yeah, but I think it's all continuation of the same thought. So it says the treasurer shall prescribe the time at which and the manner in which persons receiving money on behalf of the town shall pay the same to him, her, in his capacity as town treasurer. I'm not even sure what that means.
I don't know, it took me a bit,
What's that?
took me a bit to, I don't know if it's saying that if there, this is Kathy Harrington, I'm not certain if he's saying that, say, for example, the first selectman receives money for the town, then the treasurer will prescribe in which manner they would then turn that money over to the treasurer?
Is that just our payment terms, basically?
It's weird.
Right. I mean, do we pay, 30 days, 15 days,
Receiving money on behalf of the
45
town.
days? That's what it means to me.
It's weird saying, so if somebody, so maybe if it's saying like the tax collector receives money on behalf of the town, the treasurer would then.
Yeah, I mean, money's
take the
collected,
manner in which then they give it to the treasurer.
yeah, I mean, the tax collector collects money, the town clerk collects money,
That's what
Parks
this,
and Rec collects money.
so that's what this speaks to, I suppose, saying
Oh,
that the treasurer shall prescribe the time and manner, meaning like you have 3 business days to turn that over to me or to deposit it or something to
Yeah,
that effect. I'm
right.
assuming that's what it's talking about. It was difficult when you read it first.
Right.
yeah,
Maybe payment terms.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I also read payment manner, cash, money order,
Okay.
Right,
that,
Mhm.
now we live in digital currency as well, so.
Yeah.
Payment manner.
Right.
Yeah,
But he's not recommending any changes to that one.
right.
We were just confused by it.
I feel
So-
like I'm in good company.
I mean, it seems to me, I mean, as far as the language in the, section 302, section D, where it talks about the treasurer will serve through, the elected treasurers shall serve through November 16th, 2027, and then effective with the election of 27, the town treasurer shall no longer be elected. I mean, does anybody object to that language? I think that makes sense, and that's what we, I think what we talked about at the last meeting, that our thought was the existing, current treasurer should serve out the term, which has been elected to.
Yep. Agreed.
And this is Kathy Harrington. I feel like it's good language because it's almost like it gives a historical narrative, saying, effective with the election of 1987 and then through this. And like Derek mentioned in his note, maybe future charter revisions may end up taking that out or shortening it, but for the time being, at least it gives a good historical narrative.
Right.
This is Elizabeth Kaplan. I'm wondering if we should be even more precise and at the end of that sentence add, they will become an appointed official. So they'll
Well,
no longer be an elected official, they will become an appointed official?
I think that's
Because then
covered
when,
in
the next time we reference them under section 610,
yeah, I mean, I think
it
we,
explains that we will appoint them, so I wonder if that first reference should
Yeah,
go
I
there.
would agree with that language, to put that in there, sure. I think that's a good suggestion.
Can I just ask a clarifying question in terms of, is the intention just to ensure that the existing treasurer carries over and from an elected to then kind of continue on in that position as an appointed, or is it, what's the thought behind the clarifying language, I guess?
I guess to me, it just sounds like it should no longer be an elected official.
Kind of
But
leaves
then
the-
what happens?
Well, it kind of
Like,
leaves the reader hanging.
it does.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah, but then in section 610, it makes it clear that the treasurer,
that's true. That implies
Is
somebody
appointed.
gets to section 610 in the reading of the charter.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe they're just confused by that first sentence and
Yeah.
gave up on reading the charter.
I mean, in the end, it doesn't matter greatly to me. I just feel like this sentence kind of leaves you hanging. They're no longer affected, but what are they if they're not elected?
and what do you think, Kathy?
I mean, I think we can suggest it and see, we can get some feedback from Derek. So we could say, effective with the election of 2027, the town treasurer shall no longer be an elected official and shall become an appointed, I mean, that section says appointed personnel, so I guess we could say appointed personnel. I wouldn't say official
Position?
positions.
Position.
Works for me.
Okay,
I mean, I think we could maybe potentially say see chapter, I wouldn't want to send them directly to this section, but just see chapter 6. Do you know what I'm saying? It may referral to that chapter, which is
Further
appointed
clarification.
personnel.
Yeah.
So just in case the number changes, maybe something like that. We'll see,
see
I think that's-
section 610?
I would just say maybe chapter 6,
Okay,
right? Just in case the number changes over time, then you don't have to internally change.
yeah,
Because chapter 6 is titled appointed personnel.
okay.
Good change, Beth.
Yeah.
Yep, good.
All right, so we go to section 610. So, I mean, I guess, what are the people's thoughts on, you know, what this contemplates is that the treasurer is delineated separately, and it's an appointed position. It could be anybody, as opposed to incorporating the responsibilities into the director of finance. And I'm not sure I feel strongly either way, but.
I mean, my thoughts are the way it's written, to your point, if they can be, it sounds like it's written in a way that it could be folded into the finance office, as you mentioned, the director of finance. So if we're able to do that now, that's great, but then also in terms of if it's something that, as the town grows and maybe the responsibilities become increased, then it could be, you know, a separate position. I think it gives some flexibility. I don't know, that's my thoughts. I don't necessarily see a particular downside to it unless somebody else has insight.
Kathy Harrington, I thought when Mandy was before us last week and we talked to her, I mean, I expressly asked her about the additional work, and I think her thought was that she would need an additional person to serve in this role. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. I think it makes sense that they would come in the Department of Finance, but I don't necessarily think it should be subsumed by Mandy, like all of the duties. And I get the impression that, not saying it's not feasible, but that that's not what she was really, thought was a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, my,
A part-time position would be needed?
well, my thought is that the director of finance oversees, you know, there's a payroll person, an accounts payable person, there's an assistant director. So, you know, you could have the treasurer under that office.
Yes.
It's not necessarily that the director of finance is serving
Okay.
as the treasurer.
Okay, that's what I thought you meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, I think there's,
And I think
different
that was the
ways
kind
to
of
do it.
detail that we all talked about really is not as much in our purview, except that when we are drafting it this way, it does seem as if it would be a position, you know, the treasurer position.
right. Anybody have any thoughts strongly one way or another?
Not particularly. This is Elizabeth Kaplan. I do think it would be helpful to hear from Derek on his rating of these three pieces. And I guess specifically B, where it goes from, we currently have an elected treasurer for 4 years. This language suggests it will be appointed for 2 years. And as Ray said before, does there need to be a term? Or could this be an employee at will? So his thoughts on that. And it sounds like he maybe pulled from lots of other charters that he's read, so maybe this language makes a whole lot of sense, but understanding that would be helpful.
Yeah, pretty downward, I'm just wondering if there are any rules, regulations, policies that dictate at what level there is a term stated versus just an employee at will, right? And I would also add that we don't want to make the language so specific that it dictates a certain structure of the finance department, because that should be up to the finance director and the office.
Yeah, I mean, I think between the director of finance, the board of finance, the board of selectmen, yeah, they've got to figure it out, and
Right.
they've got a budget for it. Yeah, they've got to establish a control environment, all those things. Okay. I mean, I think we should probably try to get Derek
Okay.
to our next meeting.
All right. If he's unable to come, I'll ask him to specifically address that for us. That'd be
Okay.
helpful.
And it looks like every other reference did not need a change necessarily, although we questioned whether some of these treasurer notifications should be director of finance duties versus treasurer.
Yeah, I mean, what I can do is ask Mandy to look at these provisions
Mhm.
and see what she thinks.
Right. We don't wanna contradict current practices.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, language is very old. Before we had a full-time professional in the finance role,
Mhm.
the treasurer was responsible for all these things.
Because it might be something that she might want to change to like the finance department,
Mhm.
more generally, as opposed to a specific position,
Right.
even herself.
Okay. All right. Anybody have anything else on that?
Yep. When's our next meeting, just so I can ask her, anybody at the top of their head, is it the 14th? I think it's the 14th.
14th, okay. I think we really, because we've got the hearing, the 30th, we probably need to wrap up at that meeting.
I'll see if he can't, maybe put something in writing first and also come and attend, or at least be remote to answer questions about it.
Okay. All right. Anybody have anything else on that?
I mean, just a comment, I don't think I can make the 14th, so
Okay.
that'll be a challenge, like, see.
You're out of country.
Yeah, I'm out of country, so,
Okay.
That makes it
so, but I'll see what I can do. If I can dial in, I'll dial in.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I wouldn't, we'll
Yeah,
get by, but.
yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, understood. Okay, is there any public comment? Mr. Hornish?
Good evening, Neil Hornish, Thorl Avenue. First, again, I'd like to thank you for having copies for the people in attendance. Very considerate, it's appreciated. And I hope you mentioned that there was a correspondence from the first selectman. I hope that would be included in the meeting minutes.
We can include that in the minutes.
And then the only other thing that came up, just with your discussions just now, it sounded like if the treasurer becomes an appointed position and somehow gets folded into the finance office, your discussion now just sounded like the responsibilities of the treasurer may change, and it may not be what the current treasurer does now. It sounded like some of those tasks or responsibilities may get distributed to other members in the finance department. And I was just wondering, is that something that would have to be formalized and understood before this would go to a town meeting, or would the town meeting just be saying appointed or elected, and all that other stuff would have to be worked out at some later date? Thank you.
Tom?
Can I just speak from here? Is that okay?
Are you gonna pick that up, Chris?
I'm not sure about the
Oh.
sound in
You
here,
wanna-
honestly. Sorry, Tom.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Tom Trene, 489 Warnertown Road. Three different things unrelated to Casey. Number one, I'm told that the town is going through the process now of getting her bonded as treasurer. Just for your information, I don't think that's come up in the discussions you've had. Second is, by the language that's being proposed here, you're proposing that the treasurer could be a non-town resident. And that was one of the things, one of the earliest commenters you had in this commission, that somebody expressed his experience with that in Long Meadow, I think it was, where that was not a good thing, that it was not a town resident in that position. And the third thing is, I don't know if it's in the charter, but for some reason the treasurer is also a member of the Helena Bailey Tree something or other committee. And I don't know that that's in the charter anywhere, but it exists, and just keep that in mind as you think about all the places where the treasurer is referred to in the discussions. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Any other comment in the room? All right, is there any public comment on Zoom?
Nobody's raising their hand. No, there's only two. Me.
Okay.
Brian, did you have anything?
Brian, do you have any comment?
Probably doesn't know how to unmute himself,
Yes, yes.
unless it's Dave. Dave, Brian?
Oh,
No, they're not muted, so maybe they just want to say.
okay. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Somebody on the